In Ipsos polling exclusively for Global News, if an election were held today, 38% of Canadians would vote for the Liberals, up 2 points since September. Erin O'Toole's Conservatives would see 32% support, up 1 point since last month. 17% of Canadians would vote NDP, down 1 point. 7% are for the Green Party, up 2 points. And the Bloc Quebeçois would garner 6% of the national popular vote, down 1 point. 16% of Canadians say they don't know how they would vote, and 8% wouldn't vote at all. The Liberal lead over the Conservatives has a lot to do with how women plan to vote versus men. 39% of women say they will vote Liberal. That's an 11% lead over the Conservatives at 28%. The NDP at 20%, with the Bloc and Greens both at 6%. Among men, the Liberals at 36% support and the Conservatives at 35% are tied, with the NDP trailing at 14%, 7% for the Greens and 6% for the Bloc. Age is also an issue. The Liberals have a large lead at 41% support in the 35 to 54 age group. The Conservatives are at 28%, the NDP is at 17%. The Greens are at 7% and the Bloc at 5%. The only age group where Liberals do not lead is among those aged 55 and older, with the Liberals and Conservatives tied at 37% each. The NDP is at 12%, followed by the Bloc at 8%, and the Greens at 5%.
Well, what we're seeing right now is that the Liberals have taken a bit of a bounce since their speech from the throne. They have sorted out about a 6-point lead over the Conservatives nationally, which is an interesting territory where they're knocking on the door of potentially looking at possibly forming a majority government, although they'd have to do better in a couple of regions than they are right now. But you can also see, this telegraphs why the Prime Minister and the government have become so obstinate about protecting their position in the House of Commons and why they are treating things as votes of confidence. Yeah, we've seen that the government's approval level, actually the Prime Minister's approval level in terms of handling the coronavirus is down about 15 points since the start of the crisis. So he's moved down to 59%, but any time that any political leader in this country gets 59%, they have to be really happy. So at the moment, looking at these data, the Prime Minister's in a pretty strong position. Yeah, Canadians aren't looking for a campaign, and only 33% of us said the likelihood is that we're going to have an election by the spring, or they would welcome an election by the spring. So that's a pretty healthy group that's not looking forward to an election. Who would they blame? It's split all over the place, but the weight seems to go to the Prime Minister and to the Liberal Party. So they have to be careful about how they would get into this, and if they do go to the people, it has to be for the right reason. But the other thing that we know, based on previous experiences, people tend to get over how the election was caused pretty quickly, and they get into the dynamics of the election soon after probably the first few days, and we forget about why it was called. So I don't know that it necessarily represents any great impediment to the government going anytime soon, but the truth is it's not something that will be welcomed by Canadians, and it's pretty clear who they would blame in terms of causing the election.